Before I show you, demonstrate how this works and explain how it works, I want to briefly bring up the code for those people who just want to look at the code and basically figure it out their own, which I usually like to do when I'm going through these things. I don't like going through their explanation, but I'll give you kind of a brief rundown of what's going on. All the objects on the screen that have a parent object root parent will be saved to the file, all of them. So what you want to do, if you want to save any object on the screen, make sure that you assign object root parent to it, or whatever root parent, or whatever you want to call it. I call it object root parent. Okay, so this is your code. This is your save file at the top and your load file right here. So if you want to copy it and figure it out yourself, that's fine. Okay, now let's get into the demonstration. Okay, here we go. Here's the game. It's not really a game. All I did was just put a bunch of objects on the screen at different locations. We got our rock objects, we got our bug objects, and we got our tile objects. And all these three objects right here can be loaded and saved back to the file. The stationary objects save and load, and the score won't be affected by the save or load function. So what we're going to do is first push the control key. I got it programmed so it'll delete all the objects. Wait, before we do that, we want to save it. Okay, save. Now if I push load right now, you won't even see any difference at all. So that's why I'm going to delete all the objects right now so you can see them come back. So I just deleted all the objects. They no longer exist. Now when I push load, they should bring them all back exactly the same location they were at. Loading game. There you go. Now let's get on to explaining how this thing works. Okay, well now let's get into explaining how this thing actually works. Let's go to the room. Notice in the room you have the two objects we'll be looking at are your save and load buttons, which correspond to object load file and object save file. Let's open up object save file first. Go over to code. We have this code that we previously showed at the beginning of the film or video. And first thing you have to realize that all the objects that will be saved to this file have to have a parent object called object root parent. And if we open up object root parent, we'll notice that it's just a blank object that does nothing. It's not even loaded on the screen. It's just an empty skeletal object used to help load the program, load the other objects up. So if we go to an object, let's say object Hellbug, and let's say we want to be able to load this object to the file, all we have to do is select object root parent. That's all we have to do. We do that, and we can do that to the rock object rock Notile. It has object root parent, so it'll be saved. And same way with object tile. It's got object root parent. It'll also be saved. Now we know that object Hellbug, object rock Notile, and tile will all be saved. Now object load file and object save file won't be saved, and they shouldn't be saved because all they are, well, not all they are, they're static objects that don't really change any. They always act exactly the same, so there's no point in loading and saving them. So if you open up object load file, you'll notice that it doesn't have a parent, so it's not going to be saved. Alright, so let's go over to the object save button again, and you'll notice that we have this variable file variable, which is really a file pointer that's used to access a bunch of complex functions that do a lot of complex behind the scenes stuff that you don't really want to have to worry about. So we have to open up this file to be able to get to those functions. So what we do is we go File, Text, Open for Write, and we set up a directory. I always start off with working directory plus whatever directory I want, and you can name it whatever you want. I happen to call it save game data text, just .text, just because that's what I like. It just makes sense to me. Once we have the file handle opened, we can start looping through all the objects. And this is what this little for loop does. It just loops through all the objects, starting with the first object and then all the way to the end. So at the first object, it'll say, okay, get the ID of that object by using this function right here. What it does is takes the ID and sticks in a variable ID. And now you want to place the index of that object into the file. So you go file text write real, which is saying writing a real number instead of a string. If you want to write a string, you'll put file text write string, but we're not worried about strings right now. So we have file text write real number, and what I'll do is I'll take this index and then place it into file. And next you have this file text write line, which means you go to the next line and put more data in, and so on and so on. The reason you have this file text line is it separates the data. If you didn't have the file text line, all the data would be grouped together. So like if the index was 10, x was 9, and y was 1, then you'd have 1091 instead of 10 for one and 9 for the other, and whatever. It just separates the data basically. And what it'll do is just keep looping through all the objects until there's no more, and then you put this file text close. You always have to put file text close at the end to close out the file. You don't want to leave it open. You get all this leakage, memory leakage and stuff. Bad stuff goes on. Let's just put it that way. And then you push this show message, game has been saved, just so you'll know that when you press the button something happened. And that's it for the object save file. Next we're going to go to the object load file. This is how we load our files. And as soon as you push your load, you want to have this little message to let you know that you actually did something, because if you push the file and it doesn't do anything, you don't realize you're doing anything. So I usually just put a message up here saying load file, loading game. Next thing you do is you want to make sure that the file actually does exist, because this might be the first time you save the file. If it doesn't, you just put down no games have been saved yet. But if it is saved, what you want to do next is destroy all the current objects that you'll be loading up. Hope that makes sense. So all the objects right now that can be loaded or saved will be destroyed on the screen. Next you want to create another file pointer, and by using the file text open for read, because we're not going to be writing, we're all going to just be reading the data off the file at the same directory that we had in the previous save file code. Alright, next we want to loop through all the data, and then as soon as there's no more data, we want to leave and go file text close. And what it does, what you do is you just say file text into file. What it does is say keep looping until there's no more data left. And what you do is you input all that data that you saved previously, and the first one will be the object, the second one will be the X position, the third will be the Y position, and you take those values and stick them over the instant create X, Y object ID, and this will create a new object right here. It'll create the object back to where it was originally saved at. Then you push then after it loops through all the objects or all the data, you want to close your file out. You always want to close your file out, and that's it. That's basically all there is to loading and saving as many objects as you want to the screen. Well, also what you want to do, you can also add more variables. I just have 3, but you could add as many variables as you want. Let me open that other one back up again and save. Alright, what you got here is this is one variable, this is another one, and this is another one. So we have 3 altogether, and they also have to correspond to your load file, where you got 1, 2, 3 here. So if I add another variable here, let's just say speed. I'll just put it in here and take it with it. Control C. Or let's say we want to find out, we want to add the speed in here also. So we go variable ID speed, and you're going to have to go down here and add another read variable. and then call it, let's bring up here speed, VAR speed, VAR speed. Control C, make it this speed. And I guess you want to create an instant. Let's just, here's this, it's just called ID. Control C. So you're gonna create the ID, get the ID from this create instance, and once you get the ID, you can use that ID and set its speed. So dot speed. Well, it's not gonna be dot speed. Yeah, dot speed equals variable speed. And you just keep it adding as many parameters as you want. You can put your health in there or whatever. Just keep going on and on and on forever if you want to. But that should be it. That should cover about everything if you want to load all your objects. Or as many objects as you want. You could actually load every single object of the game on there if you want to, but I wouldn't load static objects. It just doesn't make any sense. Alright, thank you for watching. I hope this helped.